Hey, welcome back. So today we're going to take our textures that we created in Quixel Mixer and we're going to put them back into Maya and get everything all set up and then render it using Arnold so we can kind of check it out inside of Maya, see how that process works. If you've missed previous videos of this, you can go ahead and get caught up on my YouTube channel right here, putting on the Fritz visual 3D visualization and get all caught up. In the previous video, we played around in Mixer a couple different times, the previous two videos, getting everything all set up. And now we're getting ready to take those textures, which we've exported already in the last video, but we're going to have to jump back into Mixer real quick, and we're going to have to re-export our displacement map because we did it as an EXR, and I want to go ahead and do it as a PNG, and I can show you how that process works and kind of play around a little bit with those settings. So let's go ahead and get that started. Let me just drop this background here. You can see our house in the background. And, oh, wrong one. I want to get rid of my head. There we go. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that this displacement maps that we've created, which give us our kind of our three-dimensional look a little bit, we use those combined with the normal map to give us this kind of three-dimensional feel and look on some of the textures that we've created. So what that looks like is we go over here to export. And then inside of export, what we do is we go down here to the bottom where it says textures, and then right underneath that, there's this advanced texture map, advanced texture setup. Wow. You click on that little set of words. It doesn't really seem like it's much of a button. You kind of scroll over it. You can see it lightens up a little bit. And we have this list of texture maps here. But when we open this, we have texture maps. We have texture sets that we can play around with. And we also have displacement, the way the displacement works. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick our texture maps. We're going to go down here to displacement and hit the little down arrow. And we want to change it from an EXR map to a PNG. We're going to leave it at RGB, and you know what, we're going to go ahead and push it at RGBA just in case we want to use that for something later. And I'm going to pick the 16-bit and leave the rest of this alone. We're just going to go ahead and leave it as is. And over here we're going to go ahead and uncheck all of the maps except for the displacement map. But we do want all of our texture sets, so all of the sets that go to all of the different pieces of the house. Okay? And now we're going to go up here, and we're going to change the folder to where this is going to go to. Okay? So I already have a worn textures, simple house ID here. So these are the simple textures right here. Oops, yeah, it's not going to show those. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder just so I know that these are my displacement maps. I'm going to just call these my PNG. You know what? I think I'll just call them displacement underscore PNG. I'll know that they're my maps because they're in here. I'm going to select that folder. And now I'm going to go ahead and just export those real quick. And this is going to take a second, so I'm going to go ahead and pause until it finishes. Okay, so that should have finished up now. So let's go ahead and take a look inside of my simple house, source images, Quixel textures, Warren textures, simple house again. And there's my displacement PNGs right there. And it's really kind of dug down in there. But you can see that now what we have is kind of this grayscale PNG maps here. And just to revisit this again, we picked the RGBA. They were PNG, 16-bit. And looks like it wasn't quite done yet. Must have missed one. Okay. So I think it's done now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this, save what I have. And I'm going to go ahead and close Quixel. And while that's closing, we're going to go ahead and open up Maya. Okay. And Maya, this is our house project. Okay, this is where we have both the house with the color on it and the house that is gray. So what I'm going to tell you right now is do not delete either one of these. Okay, we're going to leave these alone because we're going to end up using them both at some point. But we're going to come back when we use the color one. We're going to use it for our final piece of this lesson set, and we're going to end up using all of the different textures that we put on it, but we're going to rename them all so we know what they are instead of just different colors. And then we're going to export it into Unreal Engine. We'll get into that a couple of videos down the road. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to pick our house that is not the colored one. So it's just the grayscale one with just the single materials on them for each one of them. So make sure that when you take a look at your house, that your maps are, or your material is the material that is set up specifically for just the floor or just the walls. So it's one material that's set up for the entire wall, because we're going to put those textures that we just created in Quixel onto it, and it only needs to be one material. It doesn't need to have 3 or 4 materials for each piece of the walls and such. It's just the one material that's going to go over and it's going to correspond. This is what we made those UVs for. Okay, so make sure that that's the one that you have here. And again, we can take a look and see what I'm talking about. If we take a look at the UV editor, this is my walls. They're all laid out. They all exist on one material. Okay, and if we take a look at the material for this, we see that this is the one. There's the multiple colored ones in here, but there's also the ones that are specifically created for things like the walls. Right here is the wall one right here. Okay, and if we were to drag this down here, it should just be an empty material with just an export. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. Just make sure that that is what we're working with. We'll go ahead and close this for now. Close this for now. All right, so with this house, I'm going to go ahead and I'll just leave it out where it is right now, just so there's no confusion. This is the house I'm going to export. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to File, I'm going to go to Export Selection, just like we did before, but this time we're not going to export it as an FBX yet. What we're going to do is we're going to export it as a Maya binary. So right here, this right here, the Maya binary. Okay, that's what the MB stands for here. Okay. And we're going to give this a name. So this is going to be this is my simple house. And this will be textured. I'll just call it text for texture. Well, I'll just call it texture. How about that? All right, we'll just call it texture. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and it's going to go into my simple house, into my scenes, along with some of these other ones I have on here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my file up here. I'm going to go to Open Scene. I'm going to open that file up. Okay, the one I just created, simple housed texture. Okay, good name for it. And I'm not going to save this one because I didn't change anything in it. There's nothing I want to change or save, so I'm not going to save it. And now when I open it up, I have just that gray house in here. Okay. And the materials that came with it should just be the materials that belong with it. I've got some history on here, so before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and select the whole house by clicking on the top level here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete by type the history, get rid of all that history. See my roof, my walls, my floor, my porch for my floor, my porch rather. So all the materials are here. Okay. Now these materials that we're going to create are going to look an awful lot like all of the other materials. So I'm going to show one, and then I'm going to pause and let you work on yours while I work on mine. And then I'll pop back in and show you the very last one that I'm working on. And that way you get to see it twice, just in case you need to see it twice. Of course, you can always rewind. And talk about the finished process. So this will be kind of a shorter video, but there's several materials. Based on however many materials you have to do is how long it's going to take you to do. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with that then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my roof, okay? And pull up my material here. Okay. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come up here to the top. So I guess I should tell you what I just did. Right here, this is the Hypershader, okay, the Hypershade control box. And it opens up this window. We have our materials along the top here. You can change the size of these little buttons here if you want to by selecting these little squares right here. They make them bigger or smaller. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull that material down. I don't know why I just did that. Okay, so the way we pull it down is I'm going to middle mouse button click. So you're going to use your middle mouse button and click and hold it down and drag it down here into the window. Okay, and there it is right there. And I'm going to hit the arrows here, and it's going to make sure you have the material selected when you do that, and you hit these little input and output arrows right here, input and output connectors, and it's going to pop in. It's going to show you our connectors. Okay, I'm just going to kind of grab it and pull it to the side just a little bit like this. And the next thing I want to do is right here on this tab, I'm going to double click on this tab, and I'm going to name this so I know what I'm working with here. This is my roof, and I'm going to have several tabs. And I advise leaving the tabs open. You can always add more tabs by hitting these pluses, and that way you can jump back in and take a look at your previous material that you follow along with here, and kind of see how it gets set up. So the next thing we want to do is we need to get our textures into our scene here, okay? And where they are is inside of our folder here, but they're also inside of our project, right? So I'm going to go inside of my project folder. I'm going to find all of my textures that have to do with my roof. And I'm going to scroll down until I find my roof ones. Now there's a displacement in here that we just used before, which is this EXR. Okay, when we click on it, the EXR, you don't really get to see that much about it. And if we pull it into Maya, it does create the EXR. Okay, but you can see that for the roof, it's very gray. There's no actual information that we can see on it. So that's why we ended up, I'm going to delete that now, so go ahead and delete it if you did the same thing I did. And that's why we ended up creating it in the PNG, and we'll take a look at that here in a second. So I'm going to select, and you can see I have these ones that are called .tx's. That's because I've ran through this before. You probably don't have a .tx folder or a file yet, but as soon as you render this the first time, that .tx file will get created, because that is what Maya is actually reading for your material. Okay, so I'm going to select everything for my roof, for my roughness, my normal, my metalness, not my displacement, my AO, and my albedo. I'm going to drag those in and drop them in down here. Okay, and it's going to stretch them out across like this. And you can tell I've been working with Unreal Engine today because I've got my controls all messed up in my head. All right, and then that was nice. I just kind of buried everything behind it. I'm going to move that up. We're also going to go in and we're going to grab our displacement one right now. And that was inside of my next higher folder, I believe. Let me see here. Oh, in my displacement folder. And I'm going to grab the one that's for my roof. And you can see this roof displacement actually has some gray information that we can see here. So we're going to grab this and we're going to pull it in and we're going to drop it down here as well. Okay. So now I'm just going to go ahead and lay everything out a little bit so that it's easier to see, and put it in the order that we're going to use it in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this displacement one I just pulled in. I'm going to drag it down here out of the way, and we'll use that in a second. I keep using the wrong buttons. All right, so next one is my albedo. That's this first one right here. I'm going to drag it up. I'm going to kind of stick it up in the air over here. And then the next one is my AO, and I'm grabbing both the nodes for this texture, okay? And this one, the next one is my metalness, which is in the right order. I'll put it right about there because it doesn't have any nodes we're going to work with. This is my normal, and this normal I'm going to set back just a little bit too, because we're going to put an AI normal in there. And this is the roughness. I'm going to grab the roughness, drag it over here, and kind of place it right in this area right here. That'll work. Good enough. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to start up here at the top, and yeah, we'll start up here at the top. Okay, so I'm going to, for my AO, which is this one right here, so this is my roof AO, okay, this is an ambient occlusion map. This has to do with lighting and shading, the subtle shading on an object that helps kind of give it a little bit more detail, more realism. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select this placed 2D texture back here in the back. I'm going to delete that because we're going to combine it with the one that belongs with the Albedo. So the way to do this is you hover over the 2D place 2D texture right here, hold down the control button, middle mouse button drag to the little white knob right there, and then let go. And I did that wrong. So then let go with the middle mouse button, and they should automatically connect like that. So again, it's hold the control button down, middle mouse button drag, you see the little plus next to the arrow, you go to that node, and then you let go with the middle mouse button, and you'll get them connected together like that. Okay, the next thing we need is we're going to do a composite. We're going to combine these two together and composite them. So what we can do is we can hit the tab button right here. So if you hit tab, it brings up this little window that you can type into, and you can do a search. Okay, I know in the past I've done everything through the left side over here, and that's to get you used to, you know, kind of digging around and looking for stuff. If you can't find it, you can't remember what it's called, you can kind of get a general idea of where to look and then try to find it that way. But this tab makes things easier if you know what you're looking for. So we're looking for the composite, okay? So the AI composite, because we're working with Arnold materials here, and the out color from the top one, which is the Albedo, goes into A. The out color from the bottom one, which is our AO map, goes into the B. And then our out color goes into the base color. Now, a couple things we still need to do. I'm going to click back here on the AO texture right here, so it highlights green. Over here, I'm going to make this alpha is luminous. I'm going to ignore these rules, and we're going to go ahead and make this raw. And then for the AI composite, select the AI composite right here where it says operation, and it says over. We're going to hit the down button, and we're going to multiply these. Okay, and we're going to multiply it together, and it's going to create this kind of a texture that we're going to see appear on our house. And since we already have this material applied, we can kind of pull back a little bit. And you can see something starts to happen, but because we're using this composite, we're not actually going to see it pop onto our house. Okay, even if you hit 6 on the keyboard, it's still going to be dark gray. It turned dark gray, so we know something's happening. We just don't know what yet. We have to actually render to be able to see this. Okay. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is not that. I'm going to hold my Alt button, kind of drag down a little bit. I'm going to connect my metalness. So this is an out alpha into my metalness. I'm going to select the node itself right here. Alpha is luminous. We're going to ignore the rules. Go to utility and select raw. And then we're going to do the same thing for the roughness. It's the specular roughness. Select the node. Alpha is luminous. Ignore the rules. Go to utility. We're going to make that raw as well. The next thing we need to do is scroll down here to where our normal is located. And again, hit the tab button. Type in norm. And before you even get that far, you'll see that AI normal map pops in right here. Okay, AI normal map. We're going to select that. And turn the power back on. What's going on with my electrical system today? Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and go out alpha into my input. I'm sorry, out color into my input. My bad. Out value into normal camera. For this, I'm going to select my node again. This is going to be alpha is luminous. And ignore these rules. SRG, we're going to go to utility, select raw. Okay, so now we got most of everything set up. The next thing we need to do is we need to connect our displacement. Okay, so right here, I'm going to move this up a little bit closer so I can see what I'm doing with the two. In this open area again, I'm going to go ahead and hit tab. I'm going to type in displacement. So, and what I want is the displacement shader. Okay, and it comes with its own little output node. We're going to delete the output node because I'm after this part of the node right here, this displacement shader. Okay, my out alpha is going to go into the displacement, and then from here, this little green button goes up into the displacement shader right there. Okay. Make sure that you select alpha is luminous from the main node here. We're going to ignore those rules. We're going to go to our utility and we're going to turn on raw. Okay. So this is the first material we have set up. This is our roof. We're going to go ahead and I'm going to save everything. And we're just going to do a real quick test to see if everything is working the way it should be. Okay, so I'm going to just put in a dome. So remember, go to your Arnold tab right here. Select one of these two domes here. I'm going to pick the skyline right here. And then I'm going to hit play on my Arnold. And let's take a look and see what is going on with the roof. So there we go. You can see that this roof looks an awful lot like what we started with our particular material, or our house model rather, inside of Quixel. And we can kind of zoom in on it, move it around, see that it's applying everywhere where it's supposed to be. Up under here, got my roof, everything working the way it's supposed to. Okay, so that's the first piece. We've got this all of our textures working pretty good so far. Of course, it's just our first one, right? We got several more pieces to do, several more models or materials to do. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this. You can see our glass is kind of grayed over here, but we'll take care of that here in a little bit towards the end. Okay, so that's the first one. I'm going to go ahead and jump back over here to my Hypershade and just show you the process to get you started on the second one. And then I'm going to pause. I'm going to finish up, and I'm going to let you finish up yours. And then we'll meet back at the end. I'll kind of show you what I've got, and we'll talk about the windows a little bit as well. Okay, so the way to get started on your next tab is you can just hit the plus button, and you can pull down again. Say you wanted to work with your walls this time. Click middle mouse button, click and drag, and pull it down into here. Okay, so make sure you select it, and then hit your buttons there. Double click inside here and name this what it is, walls. Okay, and now you have your walls material. And from there you can go ahead and get started, and I'm going to pause while you do that. Okay, so now we are getting close to the end here. I've got all of my materials done, and this one is actually going to be my window glass. Okay, so, and we'll come back and take a look at that in a minute. So with all of the materials done, now my house is all gray. I'm going to go ahead and hit the play button up here and bring this over. And you can see my windows really aren't that transparent at all now. We'll have to fix that. And you can see that everything's been textured, and this is kind of what we're working with right now. And let me go ahead and just kind of move the house around a little bit here. And if you want to move the sun around to be able to kind of get it to the different parts of the house so you can see it a little bit better, if you click on the sky dome, hit E on your keyboard, and then scroll down until you can see the little gizmo there. You can rotate the sun simply by clicking on it and just rotating the dome, and it'll rotate the light source. And you can see that that's what we've got going on right there. Rotated the light a little bit, and it's now changed the way the sun is shining on my house. And oops, I wanted to turn the house. Actually, I do want to turn the view of the house so you can kind of see how it looks around the other edges, where the sun's at, and all of the different pieces. Now, if we go inside the model itself, it'd be a little bit difficult to see the, especially since I'm underneath it. It'll be a little bit difficult to see the interior because there's no light source. What you can do is you can actually put a light source into the model. Let me go ahead and just drop that out of the way for a minute. Okay, what we can do is we can go to Arnold up here on the top, find lights, and what we want is just an area light. Is the area light going to be the best thing? Yeah, I think the area light will be alright. So That should pop here into the center somewhere. There it is right there. Pull it up into the room. And point light probably would have worked a little bit better. But the thing with point lights inside of using Arnold is that we have to really turn them up really high. Yeah. Could also, I think we have more choices if we go to create Arnold lights. Not really a lot more. So we'll just go ahead and stick with what we have right here. Okay, and then go ahead and just kind of raise it up. You might need several of these. You can also expand them, make them larger. More power out of them. More size coverage of the area. And then over here on the area light, if you click on the shape, you have your intensity and your exposure to be able to turn it up, give yourself some more light so you can actually see something that's happening. Go ahead and bring this back. And not a lot happening in there with it. All right, let's see here. Let's go up to create. Just gonna go ahead and put a point light in there. Pull it up. This is, we're gonna have to really get intense with this point light, but it does provide 360-degree light, but it needs to be really, really high to be able to actually be seen. So I put in 500, and when I do that, you can start to see that it lights everything, but I'm really washing stuff out now. So find a happy medium. And I'm almost getting the feeling that my floor doesn't actually have the material applied to it. No, I think it does. Just isn't very visible. Okay, it looks like something's going on with the wall over here as well. It's kind of funny. I think it was just a render. It might be the windowsill. We might have to do some fixing on some things, but we'll see. All right, so let me select that point light again. Delete that light. Okay. We'll have to play around with the lighting to get the interior better, but you kind of get the idea. You can light it up and take a look and see what's happening inside. I'm going to select my floor. I'm going to go back to my material here, and you see this light has kind of got itself in the way. I'm going to go to my floor. Should be assigned, but let's go ahead and I'm going to just go ahead and with the floor selected in my scene here, I'm going to hover over floor. I'm going to right mouse button click. I'm going to assign material to selection just to make sure that it's assigned where it's supposed to be, and it is, but my render doesn't seem to be catching up to it. And that's definitely a lighting issue, and we have to go in and play around with the lights to get the lights to show up and see what this is actually going to look like. But I think if I take a look underneath the model, Okay, well, oddly enough. You get the idea. And across the top we have all of our different materials, the glass. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the glass. Don't worry about this point light shape right here. It's just kind of in the way. What we're interested in is the glass itself, and it has more to do with the transparency setting that we have here. So let me go ahead and close this for a minute. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is, with the glass itself selected, and I have it over here as well, I can see that the transmission is probably the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to above 90, like 94, 95. When I do that, you can see that it clears up just a little bit here on the Hypershader ball. We hit play. Change my angle here so we can kind of see a little bit better. And maybe need to go up a little bit more. I also have a lot of artifacts from that light inside. Let's just go ahead and go all the way up. And I'm going to find that point light. And I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to select all these windows. And make sure that I have the material properly assigned. So this is my window material right here. Right click and hold. Go to assign material to selection. It should have become transparent. So I'm going to pause everything. I'm going to restart Maya and just see if Maya is just being difficult with me for both the floor and for the windows. I have a feeling that's probably the case. And then when I get it back up, we'll take a look. Okay, so I'm back after a few minutes of messing around with everything. I realized that, well, I wasn't really thinking about glass the way I should have been. And the other thing was, I went ahead and took a look at the floor. Turned out somehow the material corrupted. I ended up just rebuilding the material. Sometimes you have to do that. And after I rebuilt the material, we can see now that the floor texture, and I put some lights in there. I put in probably about 15 lights above the surface here. And you can see that the floor is coming in the way it's supposed to be. Now with the way it's supposed to look. I do have something going on with my window over there. I'll have to figure that out later. And my glass, you still really can't see through the glass, and that is because I wasn't really thinking about glass the way I should have been. Not only do we need to worry about the glass material itself as far as transmission, and I have it all the way up to 1, but also about the roughness. And all of this moving things back and forth between the different programs, the roughness kind of got set kind of high. And so what we want to do is we want to take that roughness and turn it down. And depending on how far you want to turn it down, we'll determine. And let me get to the actual, center that a little bit better. Get to the actual window here so we can see what I'm doing. Zoom out a little bit. And let's see here. Am I going the right way on my roughness? Oh, wrong way. Definitely want to go down. Okay, there we go. Down to 0 or close to 0, depending on the effect you want to have in your glass. But it needs to be very low. And now you can see through the windows, everything is good. It just depends on your render settings and your render speed as to how good your render will come out. And that's going to conclude the lesson so far. And again, if you have any questions about what we've done, you can review the video. You can always shoot me a message down in the comments. Ask me if you have a question, if there's some issues, if things aren't working out right. I can try to help you and answer your questions. And again, you can also check out my other videos. I have some videos here for Maya, some additional projects, as well as a bunch of stuff with Unreal Engine, making a game, putting some of your models into the game. And ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to end up taking this same model in the next video. We're going to take it with the textures that we currently have set up and putting it into Unreal Engine so you can see what your house will look like inside of a game engine. And I'll go ahead and show you kind of an example, a preview of that next project right here. And inside of Unreal Engine, we'll put our project in here. Take a look at our house. These gray spots are from our these shaders right here that are reflection shaders, so that we actually get reflection in the glass. And we can hit play, kind of run around it, check things out. Now, of course, we've got more refining to do on this one, and we'll go over some of that in the next video when we actually import it in, apply the materials. We're going to have to create our materials yet again inside of Unreal Engine, but that won't take that long, and the nodes are pretty simple to put together. All right, so again, like my video if you like what you saw. Please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.